The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness of space like a silver jewel. Inside its grand assembly hall, hundreds of alien beings gathered for an important meeting. The hall was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up toward the ceiling. Strange creatures of all shapes and sizes filled these seats. Some looked like walking crystals. Others had multiple arms or tentacles, and a few glowed with their own light. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the hall with his team. Dr. Lisa Carter stayed close to his left side, while Commander Alex Brooks followed behind them. The three humans looked very small compared to most of the aliens around them. Their simple blue uniforms seemed plain next to the colorful robes and armor worn by the other species. As soon as the humans entered, whispers started spreading through the crowd. Some aliens pointed at them with claws or tentacles. Others made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. Jake could feel hundreds of eyes watching them as they walked to their assigned seats near the back of the hall. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood up at the front of the room. Vexthul was a tall creature made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through his body in patterns as he spoke. His voice echoed through the hall without needing any machines to make it louder. "We gathered today to discuss the humans' request," Vexthul announced. "They want to join our Galactic Council and receive protection under our peace agreements." A loud roar came from the section where the Drakmori sat. General Korth stood up, showing off his 6 powerful arms. His skin was dark red and covered in scales. 2 small horns grew from his forehead, and his yellow eyes burned with anger. "This is a joke," Korth shouted. "These tiny creatures just learned how to leave their home planet. They have no real weapons, no strong ships, and no armies worth talking about. What could they possibly offer us?" Many aliens in the crowd made sounds of agreement. The Nexari representative, called Unit 47, activated a holographic display. The robot-like being showed charts and numbers that proved how weak human technology was compared to other civilizations. "Look at these facts," Unit 47 said in a mechanical voice. "Humans have only been in space for a few decades. Their fastest ships take months to travel between stars. Their weapons are simple projectiles and basic energy beams. They have explored less than 50 star systems." More aliens stood up to speak against the humans. A snake-like creature called them violent and dangerous. A floating jellyfish thing said they were too primitive to understand galactic politics. Even some of the smaller, friendlier-looking species shook their heads when asked about human membership. Jake Morrison finally got permission to speak. He walked to the center of the hall, feeling the weight of all those alien eyes on him. His voice was steady and calm as he began to address the council. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake said, "we know we are new to space travel. We know our technology is not as advanced as yours, but we learn quickly, and we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves." Some aliens laughed at his words. Others whispered to their neighbors. Jake continued speaking despite the interruptions. "Humans have always been explorers," he said. "We crossed dangerous oceans on our world when we only had wooden ships. We climbed the highest mountains and explored the deepest caves. When we learned to fly, we reached for the stars. Yes, we have fought wars, but we have also built great cities and made beautiful art. We have helped each other survive diseases and natural disasters." Dr. Lisa Carter stood up next to Jake. "We have studied your history and your cultures," she said. "We respect the wisdom and achievements of every species here. We only ask for a chance to prove that we can contribute to galactic peace and prosperity." General Korth laughed so hard that his scales shook. "Contribute? What can you contribute? Your entire military could not defeat a single one of our patrol squadrons. Your science is thousands of years behind ours. Your diplomats speak only one galactic language, and poorly at that." The Nexari Unit 47 projected more data into the air. "Our analysis shows that humans would require at least 500 years of development before they could meaningfully participate in galactic affairs. Granting them membership now would be like giving a child a seat on the Council of Elders." Chancellor Vexthul called for order as the noise in the hall grew louder. Many aliens were now standing and arguing with each other. Some thought the humans should be completely banned from galactic space. Others believed they might be useful as servants or workers for the advanced civilizations. Commander Alex Brooks stepped forward. His military training showed in the way he stood straight and kept his voice level. "We understand your concerns," he said. "We are not asking to lead anyone or make decisions for other species. We simply want to be part of the galactic community. We want to learn from you and help where we can." "Help?" screeched a bird-like alien with metal feathers. "How could primitive mammals help us?" You cannot even control the weather on your own planet. The debate continued for hours. One by one, the different species explained why humans were not ready for membership. They talked about human wars, human pollution, and human ignorance of galactic customs. Some aliens seemed almost offended that humans had dared to ask for membership. Finally, Chancellor Vexthul called for a vote. The result was not surprising. Out of 47 species represented in the council, only 3 voted in favor of human membership. Even those 3 admitted they were voting more out of pity than belief in human potential. The motion for human membership is rejected, Vexthul announced. However, the council grants observer status to the human delegation. You may attend meetings and receive public information, but you have no voting rights and no protection under our mutual defense agreements. The Chancellor's crystal body flashed brighter as he delivered his final warning. Humans will remain in their assigned sector of space. Any attempts to expand beyond your current borders without permission will be considered acts of aggression. This meeting is now closed. Jake Morrison nodded politely and thanked the council for their time. Inside, he felt a mixture of disappointment and anger, but he kept his face calm. As the human delegation left the hall, alien voices followed them, still laughing and making jokes about the primitive species that thought it belonged among the stars. The 3 humans walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime in silence. They had come hoping for partnership and friendship. Instead, they had found mockery and dismissal. None of them could have guessed that this humiliation would soon become the least of the galaxy's problems. 3 months had passed since the humans were rejected by the Galactic Council. On Earth, people continued their daily lives, unaware that something terrible was happening in the distant parts of the galaxy. But in the Outer Rim territories, far from the protected core worlds, colonies were going silent one by one. The first reports came from mining stations on the edge of Zephyrian space. Workers simply stopped responding to communication attempts. When rescue ships arrived, they found empty facilities with no signs of struggle. Equipment was still running. Meals were half finished on tables, but every living being had vanished without a trace. Captain Maria Santos commanded the human exploration ship USS Discovery. She was patrolling near the border of human space when she received a distress signal from a Nexari cargo vessel. The ship was badly damaged and drifting without power. Maria ordered her crew to bring the survivors aboard. The Nexari captain, a mechanical being called Unit 23, was in terrible condition. Parts of his metal body were melted and twisted. His optical sensors flickered weakly as he tried to explain what had happened to his ship. Black ships, Unit 23 repeated over and over. Ships that eat light itself. They came from nowhere, struck without warning, took my crew. I only escaped because my systems shut down and they thought I was destroyed. Dr. Helen Martinez was working on a completely different problem on the human colony world of New Boston. She had been studying ancient ruins discovered by the early settlers. The strange symbols carved into the stone walls seemed to tell a story, but it was a story that made no sense to her at first. Helen spent weeks translating the ancient text. Slowly, a picture began to form. The ruins spoke of a species called the Devourers, beings that came from the darkness between galaxies. According to the carvings, they returned every few thousand years to harvest advanced civilizations, like farmers gathering crops. The ancient text described how the Devourers would appear suddenly, striking at the edges of galactic civilization. They would consume technology, absorb knowledge, and take living beings for purposes the writers could not understand. The carvings showed images of black ships that seemed to bend light around them, making them nearly invisible against the stars. Helen immediately sent her findings to Earth's government and military leaders. At the same time, reports were coming in from human ships across their small territory. Refugee vessels from other species were appearing more frequently, carrying survivors of attacks that their governments refused to acknowledge. Admiral Kevin Roberts sat in his office on Luna Station, reading report after report of strange incidents. Human ships were finding damaged alien vessels drifting in space. Survivors told similar stories of black ships that appeared without warning, attacked with weapons that seemed to ignore shields and armor, then disappeared into the void. The Galactic Council was receiving the same reports, but they dismissed them as piracy or civil unrest. When the Drakmori lost contact with 3 border outposts in a single day, General Korth blamed rebels and sent additional patrols. When Zephyrian mining colonies stopped responding, Chancellor Vexthul assumed they were having communication problems. The advanced civilizations of the galaxy had become comfortable in their power. They had not faced a serious external threat in thousands of years. The idea that something could challenge their technological superiority seemed impossible to them. Dr. Lisa Carter was working with the refugee interviews on Luna Station. She noticed patterns in their stories that troubled her deeply. The attackers seemed to learn from each encounter. Ships that survived the first attacks reported that the enemy adapted their tactics and weapons for the next engagement. "They study us," whispered a Zephyrian engineer whose mining station had been attacked. "They take some of us alive, and when they return, they know our weaknesses. They know our technology. They use it against us." Captain Santos encountered one of the black ships while escorting a group of refugee vessels to human space. The enemy craft appeared on her sensors as nothing more than a dark shadow against the stars. When it attacked, the USS Discovery's shields failed within seconds. The enemy weapons seemed to phase through normal matter, striking directly at the ship's internal systems. Santos ordered an immediate retreat, but not before her ship's computers recorded detailed scans of the attacker. The data showed technology unlike anything in the galactic databases. As more attacks occurred, panic began to spread through the outer territories. Species that had lived in peace for centuries started evacuating their frontier worlds. Trade routes became dangerous as merchant ships disappeared. The Outer Rim, which had been a growing region of prosperity, turned into a wasteland of abandoned colonies and drifting wreckage. The Galactic Council continued to deny the severity of the situation. They claimed the attacks were isolated incidents that would be dealt with through normal security measures. They refused to coordinate their military forces or share intelligence about the threats. On Earth, Admiral Roberts was building a different picture of the enemy. Human intelligence networks, though limited, were gathering information that the major galactic powers ignored. Human ships were smaller and less noticeable, allowing them to observe enemy movements without being detected. The pattern became clear to human analysts. The Devourers were testing galactic defenses. Each attack gathered information about weapons, tactics, and technology. They were preparing for something much larger than random raids on isolated colonies. Dr. Martinez made another disturbing discovery in the ancient ruins. The carvings described how the Devourers had defeated advanced civilizations in the past. They did not simply overwhelm their enemies with superior numbers or technology. Instead, they corrupted and converted captured resources, turning the victims' own strength against them. The final warning came from Unit 47, the same Nexari representative who had mocked humans at the council meeting. His transmission to Nexus Prime was brief and terrifying. "Homeworld under attack. Defenses failing. Enemy adapting to our weapons faster than we can deploy them. This is not random piracy. This is systematic extermination." The transmission cut off before Unit 47 could say more. All subsequent attempts to contact the Nexari homeworld failed. An entire civilization, one of the most technologically advanced in the galaxy, had gone silent in the span of 3 days. Still, the Galactic Council refused to admit the truth. They called emergency sessions to discuss trade disputes and territorial boundaries, while their member civilizations faced extinction. The same arrogance that had led them to dismiss humanity now blinded them to the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. In human space, Admiral Roberts issued new orders to all military commanders. Human forces would begin preparing for war against an enemy that the galaxy's greatest powers could not even acknowledge existed. The species that had been mocked for their primitive technology would soon be the only ones ready to fight for galactic survival. While the Galactic Council argued and denied the growing threat, humanity was preparing for war. President Janet Williams stood in the Situation Room beneath the White House, surrounded by military leaders and scientists. The walls displayed maps of human space and intelligence reports from the Outer Rim territories. "Operation Forge Shield is now active," President Williams announced. "Every shipyard, every factory, every research facility is now dedicated to defending not just humanity, but everyone the Council has abandoned." Admiral Roberts pointed to the holographic display showing human territory. "We have 47 worlds and over 200 space stations. Each one is being converted into a fortress. Our people are working around the clock to build the largest fleet in human history." The transformation of human civilization was remarkable. Civilian spacecraft were retrofitted with weapons and armor. Mining operations switched to producing military-grade materials. Scientists abandoned their research projects to work on new weapons technology. Even school children participated by helping to manufacture components in simplified assembly lines. Dr. Peter Johnson led the most important project of all. In a secret laboratory on Mars, his team was developing weapons that could fight the Devourers. Using data from Dr. Martinez's archaeological discoveries and scan results from Captain Santos's encounter, they were creating technology that had never existed before. The enemy phases their weapons through normal matter, Dr. Johnson explained to the assembled team. But our quantum torpedo prototypes can phase as well. If we can match their frequency, we can hit them when they think they're safe. The first test of the quantum torpedo took place in empty space far from any inhabited worlds. The weapon appeared to work exactly as designed, creating a dimensional distortion that could affect targets in multiple phases of reality simultaneously. Dr. Johnson's team had achieved a breakthrough that even the advanced Nexari had never managed. Commander Julie Thompson was chosen to test humanity's other secret project. The USS Shadow was the first human stealth destroyer, equipped with cloaking technology reverse-engineered from captured Devourer ship fragments. The vessel could become nearly invisible to both visual and electronic detection. Julie stood on the bridge of the Shadow as it prepared for its first combat mission. The ship looked like a sleek black dagger, designed for speed and stealth rather than the massive firepower that other species preferred. Every system had been built with one purpose: to hunt Devourers without being detected. "Take us to the Alpha Centauri system," Julie ordered. "Intelligence reports Devourer activity near the abandoned mining station. We're going to test our new toys." The Shadow moved through space like a ghost. Its cloaking field bent light and sensor waves around the hull, making it appear as nothing more than empty space. When they reached Alpha Centauri, they found exactly what intelligence had predicted. A Devourer scout ship was scanning the remains of the mining station. Julie watched the enemy vessel through the Shadow's advanced sensors. The Devourer ship was larger than her destroyer, with a hull that seemed to absorb light. Strange energy patterns moved across its surface like living things. It was both beautiful and terrifying. "Target locked," reported the weapons officer. "Quantum torpedoes ready." "Fire," Julie commanded. The quantum torpedoes streaked through space, their energy signatures hidden from normal sensors. The Devourer ship had no warning before the weapons struck. The torpedoes phased through the enemy's shields and exploded inside the hull itself. Within seconds, the scout ship was nothing but expanding debris. Julie smiled grimly. "One down. Send the combat data to Fleet Command. We're going to need a lot more ships like this one." General Frank Davis was responsible for the overall military strategy. Unlike the rigid command structures used by other galactic civilizations, human military doctrine emphasized flexibility and rapid response. Davis established hidden supply bases throughout human space, each one capable of supporting guerrilla operations if the main defensive lines fell. "We're not going to fight the way they expect," Davis explained to his commanders. "Every other species tries to meet the Devourers with massive fleets and superior firepower. That's why they lose. We're going to hit them from the shadows, strike their weak points, and disappear before they can respond." Dr. Amy Foster was working on understanding the enemy itself. Using survivor testimonies and recovered Devourer technology, she was building a psychological profile of their attackers. Her research revealed something that other species had missed. The Devourers used fear as a weapon. "They don't just want to destroy civilizations," Dr. Foster explained. "They want to terrify them first. Fear makes their victims make mistakes, abandon strong positions, turn on each other. But fear only works if you don't understand your enemy." Amy's research led to the development of new training programs for human forces. Soldiers and ship crews learned to recognize and resist the psychological effects of Devourer weapons. They practiced maintaining discipline under the strange, mind-affecting attacks that had broken other species' military formations. Meanwhile, human forces were secretly evacuating refugee populations that the Galactic Council had abandoned. Transport ships moved through human space carrying survivors from dozens of different species. These operations showcased humanity's organizational abilities and their commitment to protecting innocent lives. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, coordinated these rescue missions from his flagship, the USS Liberty. His ship had been transformed from a simple exploration vessel into a mobile command center equipped with advanced communication systems and defensive weapons. We're taking in refugees faster than we can process them, reported his aide, Commander Brooks. Food production is being stretched to accommodate different species' dietary needs. Medical facilities are treating injuries from weapons our doctors have never seen before. Admiral Morrison nodded. We'll manage. We always do. What's the status on the Devourer advance? Brooks activated a holographic map showing the galaxy. Red markers indicated systems that had gone silent, while yellow markers showed areas under attack. The pattern was clear. The Devourers were moving steadily toward the galactic core, consuming everything in their path. At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the first core worlds within 6 months, Brooks reported. The Council species are finally starting to panic, but they still haven't coordinated any effective response. The breakthrough everyone had been waiting for came from an unexpected source. A damaged Devourer ship had been recovered by human salvage teams. Dr. Johnson's analysis of the wreckage revealed the enemy's greatest weakness. Their technology was based on collective intelligence networks that could be disrupted. It's like a hive mind, Dr. Johnson explained. Each ship is connected to the others through quantum communication links. If we can jam those links, their coordination breaks down. They become much less effective when they can't share information instantly. The discovery led to the development of quantum jamming technology that could disrupt Devourer communications. Combined with humanity's stealth ships and quantum weapons, it gave human forces a significant advantage that no other species possessed. As reports continued to arrive of Devourer victories throughout the galaxy, human military leaders knew that time was running out. The enemy was learning from each encounter, adapting their tactics and technology to counter the defenses they faced. Soon they would turn their attention to human space, but humanity was ready. They had weapons the Devourers had never encountered, tactics the enemy couldn't predict, and most importantly, they had the determination to fight for every inch of space. The galaxy had mocked them as primitive and weak. Soon, they would discover just how wrong they had been. The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of Nexus Prime as Chancellor Vexthal rushed to the assembly chamber. His crystalline body flickered with stress patterns that other Zephyrians could read like words. The news from the outer territories was worse than anyone had imagined possible. The great assembly hall that had once been filled with proud representatives from dozens of species was now half empty. Many civilizations had simply stopped sending delegates, their homeworlds either destroyed or cut off by Devourer forces. Those who remained looked nothing like the confident beings who had mocked humanity just months before. General Korth of the Drekmori sat slumped in his chair, his 6 arms hanging uselessly at his sides. His once proud military had suffered defeat after defeat against the advancing enemy. Entire battle groups had been destroyed without inflicting any meaningful damage on the Devourer fleets. Report, Chancellor Vexthal commanded. Though his voice lacked its former authority, Korth struggled to stand, his injuries from the last battle still visible. The Drekmori Third Fleet engaged Devourer forces at the Crimson Nebula. We had 200 ships, including our most advanced dreadnoughts. The enemy had perhaps 50 vessels. The general paused, his yellow eyes dim with exhaustion. Within 4 hours, my entire fleet was either destroyed or captured. The enemy ships adapted to our weapons faster than we could modify our tactics. They turned our own technology against us, using captured vessels to attack their former allies. Unit 47 of the Nexari activated his damaged projection systems. The robot's once perfect mechanical body was now held together with emergency repairs. Nexari intelligence networks have been completely compromised. The enemy possesses some form of advanced artificial intelligence that can subvert our systems within minutes of contact. The holographic display showed the current galactic situation. More than half of all known civilizations had gone silent. The red zones marking Devourer control now extended deep into what had once been considered safe core territories. The enemy was less than 50 light-years from Nexus Prime itself. A small furry creature called Squeak spoke from the lower tiers. His species, the Rillan, had been among those who laughed loudest at humanity's request for membership. Now his voice shook with terror. My homeworld fell yesterday, Squeak whispered. 2 billion of my people gone in 6 hours. The Devourers didn't just destroy our cities. They harvested our knowledge, our culture, everything that made us who we were. They consumed our very essence and left nothing but empty shells. Similar reports came from the few remaining delegates. The proud Zephyrian crystal cities had been shattered, their inhabitants absorbed into the enemy's growing intelligence network. The mighty Nexari production facilities were now building ships for their conquerors. The warrior race Drakmori had been reduced to scattered refugees fleeing through space. Chancellor Vexthol's body dimmed as he processed the scope of the disaster.
How many ships do we have left for the defense of Nexus Prime?
Fewer than 1,000, Korth admitted, and most of those are damaged. Our weapons have proven useless against enemy adaptive shields. Our tactics are predictable to an enemy that seems to know our thoughts before we think them. The Nexari Unit 47 projected new data. Analysis suggests that Nexus Prime will fall within 72 hours of the first Devourer attack. Our defensive systems have been compromised through captured Nexari technology. The enemy knows every password, every security protocol, every weakness in our defenses. Fear filled the chamber as the reality of their situation became clear. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy, beings who had considered themselves the masters of the universe, were about to be extinct. All their advanced technology, all their accumulated wisdom, all their proud histories would soon be nothing but memories in the minds of their destroyers. A young Zephyrian aide rushed into the chamber carrying an urgent message crystal. Chancellor Vexthol absorbed the information directly through his crystalline matrix, then stood frozen for several long moments. The humans, he said finally. Our intelligence reports indicate that human space remains uncompromised. Not a single human world has fallen to the Devourers. The assembled delegates turned to look at the small section where the human observers sat. Admiral Morrison and Dr. Carter maintained neutral expressions as dozens of alien eyes focused on them. These were the same beings who had been dismissed as primitive just months ago. General Korth leaned forward in his chair. How is that possible? Human technology is centuries behind ours. Their military is tiny compared to what we fielded. How could they succeed where we have failed? Admiral Morrison stood slowly, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the panic around him. Perhaps it's time we had a more detailed conversation about galactic defense, he said quietly. Unit 47's optical sensors focused on the human. Do you possess intelligence about the enemy that you have not shared with the Council? We possess intelligence that we offered to share, Dr. Carter replied. 3 months ago, when this body rejected our membership application and banned us from participation in galactic affairs, we were told to stay in our assigned sector and not interfere with superior civilizations. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The species they had mocked and dismissed might be their only hope for survival. Chancellor Vexthol's crystalline form flickered with what humans would recognize as embarrassment. The Council may have been hasty in its previous judgment. Perhaps a reassessment of human capabilities would be appropriate. Perhaps, Admiral Morrison agreed. But any reassessment would need to acknowledge certain realities about the current situation. Squeak of the Rillan jumped from his seat. Please, my people are dying. If you have weapons that can fight these monsters, you must help us. Other delegates began pleading as well. The proud beings who had once looked down on humanity now begged for assistance from the species they had considered beneath notice. The irony was not lost on the human observers. Admiral Morrison raised his hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke in the same measured tone he had used during humanity's first appearance before the Council. The human government is prepared to discuss military cooperation, he said. However, such cooperation would require certain conditions to be met. Chancellor Vexthol leaned forward eagerly. Name your terms. First, full membership in the Galactic Council for Humanity, with all rights and privileges thereof. Second, human military doctrine will be adopted for the duration of this crisis, with human commanders having authority over combined fleet operations. Third, all intelligence regarding Devourer capabilities and tactics will be shared freely among Allied forces. The chamber erupted in desperate agreement. Delegates who had once considered these terms outrageous now accepted them without hesitation. Their pride had been broken by defeat, and survival was more important than status. General Korth stood and bowed deeply to Admiral Morrison. The Drakmori accept human leadership. We will follow your orders if you can save what remains of our people. One by one, the other delegates agreed to humanity's terms. The council that had rejected human membership now begged for human protection. The species that had mocked human military capabilities now placed their hopes in human strategy. Chancellor Vex Thol formally announced the decision. By unanimous vote of the surviving council members, humanity is granted full membership and military authority. Admiral Morrison, the fate of galactic civilization now rests in your hands. Admiral Morrison nodded gravely. We'll do everything we can. But understand this, the enemy you face is unlike anything in your experience. Victory will require sacrifice, courage, and the willingness to fight in ways you've never imagined. As the session ended, Admiral Morrison activated his communication device to contact Earth. The real war was about to begin, and humanity would lead it. Admiral Morrison stood before the largest gathering of military leaders in galactic history. The war room aboard Nexus Prime had been expanded to accommodate representatives from every surviving civilization. The beings who had once mocked humanity now hung on every word from their new human commander. Operation Liberation begins in 6 hours, Morrison announced, his voice carrying the authority that came from success where others had failed. We're not going to fight the Devourers the way you've been fighting them. We're going to use their own tactics against them. General Korth, his warrior pride completely broken by months of defeat, raised one of his 6 arms. Admiral, my forces are ready to follow your orders. But I must ask, how can human tactics succeed where Drekmori military might has failed? Morrison activated the holographic display, showing the galaxy with human forces marked in blue and Devourer territories in red. Because you've been fighting the wrong war. You've been trying to match their strength with your strength. We're going to attack their weaknesses instead. Dr. Foster stepped forward to explain the psychological warfare component. The Devourers use fear as a weapon. They expect their enemies to panic, make mistakes, and abandon strong positions. Human forces have been trained to resist these mental attacks and turn them back on the enemy. Admiral Roberts pointed to specific locations on the galactic map. Phase 1 involves simultaneous strikes on Devourer command nodes using our stealth fleets. Commander Thompson's Shadow Squadron will lead these attacks. Julie Thompson's image appeared on the communication screen from her flagship. Behind her, the bridge of the USS Shadow bustled with activity as her crew prepared for combat. Stealth destroyers are in position at 12 target locations. Quantum torpedoes are armed and ready. The alien delegates watched in amazement as human forces demonstrated coordination and preparedness that their own militaries had never achieved. Every human ship knew its role. Every commander understood the plan, and every weapon had been designed specifically to counter Devourer advantages. Unit 47 of the Nexari processed the tactical information through his damaged systems. Human quantum jamming technology is beyond our current understanding. How did you develop weapons that can disrupt Devourer communications when our most advanced computers could not? Dr. Johnson's voice came through the communication link from his laboratory on Mars. We studied their technology instead of trying to overpower it. When you understand how something works, you can find ways to break it. The first phase of Operation Liberation began exactly on schedule. Across the galaxy, human stealth ships appeared near Devourer command vessels like ghosts materializing from the void. The enemy had no warning before quantum torpedoes struck their communication arrays and command centers. Direct hits on all targets, Thompson reported. Devourer command network is fragmenting. Enemy ships are losing coordination. For the first time in months, alien military leaders saw Devourer forces actually retreat. The enemy ships that had seemed invincible suddenly appeared confused and disorganized. Without their hive-mind communication network, individual Devourer vessels became vulnerable to conventional attacks. Phase 2 involved the liberation of captured worlds using combined human and alien forces. Admiral Morrison had reorganized the surviving galactic fleets according to human military doctrine, emphasizing speed and flexibility over massive firepower. Remember, Morrison broadcast to all ships, we're not trying to destroy every Devourer ship. We're trying to rescue the populations they've captured and disrupt their ability to coordinate attacks. Hit fast, accomplish the mission, and get out before they can adapt. The battle for the Nexari homeworld became the first major test of human strategy. Captain Santos led a mixed fleet of human destroyers and surviving Nexari vessels against the Devourer occupation force. The enemy had turned the planet's own defenses against its people, but human jamming technology neutralized those advantages. Quantum jammers are active, Santos reported. Enemy coordination is breaking down. Nexari vessels, you are cleared to engage your own defensive systems. The sight of Nexari ships reclaiming their homeworld inspired hope throughout the galaxy. For the first time since the crisis began, a major world had been liberated from Devourer control. Billions of captured beings were freed from the enemy's harvesting facilities. Phase 3 brought the war to the Devourer staging areas in deep space. General Davis led massive fleet formations armed with human quantum weapons and protected by human stealth screens. The enemy found themselves fighting an opponent they could not predict or counter. "Target their harvesting ships," Davis ordered. "Every facility we destroy reduces their ability to process captured populations and technology." The human quantum torpedoes proved devastatingly effective against Devourer vessels. The weapons could phase through enemy shields and explode inside their hulls, bypassing all conventional defenses. Ships that had seemed indestructible became vulnerable to weapons they could not even detect. Dr. Foster's psychological warfare protocols proved equally important. Human forces broadcast specific frequencies that disrupted Devourer mental conditioning. Enemy crews began exhibiting confusion and panic for the first time in the war. "They're not used to being afraid," Foster explained as reports came in of Devourer ships retreating without clear tactical reasons. "Fear is making them make the same mistakes they've been forcing their victims to make." The climactic battle came when Devourer forces attempted a massive assault on Nexus Prime itself. Every surviving ship in the galaxy gathered for what everyone knew would be the final confrontation. If the galactic capital fell, organized resistance would collapse. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the USS Liberty, as thousands of ships formed defensive lines around Nexus Prime. Human vessels served as the backbone of the fleet, their quantum weapons and jamming systems protecting the larger alien ships. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he broadcast. "Today we fight not just for our own survival, but for the right of all civilizations to exist free from fear. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and show these invaders that the galaxy will not surrender." The Devourer assault fleet was the largest ever assembled, consisting of thousands of black ships that seemed to absorb light itself. But as they approached Nexus Prime, human quantum jammers activated across the entire battle area. "Enemy coordination is breaking down," reported the tactical officer. "They're losing formation coherence." Without their hive mind communication network, the Devourer fleet became a collection of individual ships rather than a coordinated swarm. Human tactics and alien determination combined to create a devastating counterattack. Commander Thompson's stealth destroyers struck at the enemy flagship, a massive vessel that had been coordinating the entire invasion. Quantum torpedoes penetrated its defenses and destroyed its central command systems. "Enemy command ship is down," Thompson reported. Remaining Devourer forces are in full retreat. The victory was complete and decisive. For the first time in their long history, the Devourers had been not just defeated but utterly routed. Their invasion fleet fled into the void between galaxies, leaving behind thousands of destroyed ships and abandoned facilities. In the aftermath of victory, Chancellor Vexthol called a special session of the Galactic Council. The assembly hall was fuller than it had been in months, as rescued populations sent new delegates to replace those who had been lost. "Today we recognize a truth that should have been obvious from the beginning," Vexthol announced. "Strength is not measured by the size of one's ships or the age of one's civilization. True strength comes from the courage to stand against impossible odds and the wisdom to adapt when adaptation means survival." The Chancellor's crystalline form glowed brightly as he made the formal declaration. "By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is awarded not just membership but leadership in galactic defense affairs. Admiral Morrison, we offer you the position of Supreme Commander of all galactic military forces." Morrison accepted the honor with the same quiet dignity he had shown throughout the crisis. "We're honored by your trust, but remember that our victory was won not by human superiority, but by the cooperation of every species that refused to surrender. We're stronger together than any of us could be alone." The ceremony ended with something unprecedented in galactic history: alien delegates standing to applaud human representatives. The species that had mocked humanity's primitive technology now celebrated the wisdom and courage that had saved their civilizations. As the delegates departed, Admiral Morrison remained behind with his staff. Dr. Carter approached him with a question that had been troubling her since the victory. "Do you think they've really learned their lesson?" she asked. "Will they remember this when the crisis is over and they don't need us anymore?" Morrison looked out at the stars through the station's massive viewing ports. Some will remember, some will forget. But the galaxy has changed. We've proven that new ideas and different approaches have value. The next time someone seeks membership in this council, maybe they'll be judged by their potential rather than their current technology. The war was over, but humanity's real work was just beginning. They had